millages by voters prior to February 13 can be exempt from prevailing wage. So by creating a capital project fund, which is what we're looking to do tonight, and designating operation dollars, which were voter approved prior to this date, we then can avoid paying prevailing wage on our capital projects that were voter approved prior to this date as well. So it's looking to approve the remainder of our bond 2020 projects from each of the 3 series and the 2023 bond projects for both series 1 and 2 that will be coming. So then each of these projects can all be paid with not having to implement prevailing wage. And we would look to transfer $50,000 of our general fund operating millage dollars to fund a portion of each of these projects.
So while one can never 100% say what legislative intent was, it seems that legislative intent was to exempt these bond projects that have been approved by voters prior to this law passing. But the way that the law ended up being written, there was some uncertainty about that, I guess I'd say. And so that's the recommendation of True Loan Firm that we take this step. Obviously, if all of our projects all of a sudden had to be bid using prevailing wage, that would greatly increase the cost and would impact what we'd be able to construct using those dollars. So that's the recommendation that True Law has made, and we also recommend that the board take this step.
Do we have any questions? Jason?
So while it feels kind of, I don't know, icky or so to have to do this, I totally get why we have to do that. I guess the question that I have is, in theory, if we put enough into that fund, could we just keep using it into 2027, 2028, 2029 to keep the same thing going? Or is this
Only on those voter approved bonds so only for the latest one with the bond from that was approved May of 2023. So everything in that project, this would apply to, but any future projects outside of that, it would not.
Anything that has state-backed money, so this will be the end of it.
because the way I was reading it, it sounded like if we used funds that were approved before February, that we could avoid some of that stuff going forward. I was just curious if we kept enough in there to say, oh, well, if we need a bond in 10 years, let's grab $1 out of that fund.
That has to also be approved prior to this implementation date of February 13. So no, unfortunately.
We can, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but for anything that's strictly local dollars, you can avoid prevailing wage.
Yes.
But for us, we're not in a position where we're raising the kinds of money to be able to build these big projects without having state-backed monies.
Tim?
So what is prevailing wage at currently? Is anyone here know?
It's categorized by trade. So there's a lot of, it says a book of numbers and figures categorized by trade, so.
We know how different it may be from what the going rate is that we're paying.
Because this is just being reestablished, I am not familiar with that. I don't know.
It can be significant to the tune of 2 and 3 times the non-union labor rates.
It's something that obviously changed about 10 years ago. I think it was probably in that time frame as well, and
It's also fluid.
Yeah, I was reading an article, I think it was Cranes in the Trade, that was talking about how that gap had narrowed quite a bit because of the labor force, so as long as it's not, less. You know what I mean? I don't wanna put ourselves in that position either, so.
no, I can tell you that in a different bond project, I know that was a question raised by many of the contractors when they bid it, and the clear implication was it was going to be much, much more expensive if they had to bid using prevailing wage.
Any additional questions? Yeah, I noticed the recommendation of the amount of money that we fund for this project. I'm just wondering if you can speak to like how getting to that dollar amount.
Yeah, so looking at this and knowing that we're just starting with the bond projects for that was approved in 2023 with Dutton Elementary, how many different bids will be going out there, because the obligation will be, and what we're finishing with the 2020 bond, each bid that we put out and each project that we award, then we will need to contribute a portion of this, from this fund, to contribute towards paying each of those contracts that we start to enter into. So not knowing how many contracts that will be, at the end, whatever is unused in this, we can transfer right back to the general fund or into the public improvement fund. There's no harm in having a balance left, but we wanted to make sure that we had enough in there to get through all the different projects.
And just to follow up, is there a percentage of this fund that we have to contribute on each of like the contracts?
No, it can be as minimum, as little as $1.
Okay.
Which makes it, because the law says in whole or in part, so a part could be as small as $1. Sarah did some conversing with other districts, and this is the exact same dollar figure that another district that we're aware of taking this step, that they used as well. So we said, sounds good.
And my thinking too was to cut a check for $1 just seems a little ridiculous, so at least contributing a little bit more than $1, because these checks are also going to the vendors that will be, or contractors that we're gonna be paying, so just having a little bit more that we're contributing towards it out of this fund made a little bit more sense. Jason?
And I don't know, maybe a little more detailed than we need to be, but can we and should we contribute the 50,000 out of the existing public improvement fund, so that it doesn't necessarily impact the rest of the general fund, or is that not?
We cannot,
No.
it has to specifically, so the language in there is we had to designate which millage funds we are utilizing. And we're utilizing our operating millage, and that goes directly into our general fund.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for your work on this. All right, can we please have roll call?
Nichols,
Yes.
Reber Garcia,
Yes.
Sadu,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are closed on our first section of the meeting.